All right, welcome back, everyone. We're live today. It's Friday. I got my regular guest, Emily Lopez, on, and I got Violeta on. So, morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, so it's been a while, Violeta, since you've been on, but it was good to finally meet you also in person at the Vegas event. But maybe quickly you can give a recap of who you are, where you invest, and kind of watch your YouTube and your podcast with Lynn and everything.
Yeah. My name is Violeta, and I am a real estate investor. Currently, doing multifamily properties. I have three duplexes in Milwaukee, and I am now moving to the San Antonio area. Gonna test that out, and also interested in kind of doing a little bit hands-on, learning, doing some projects, and so closing on a duplex um, in about a week or so. Um, and so that's going to be a fun project because not only am I going to kind of rehab a property, but also has potential to put additional units in the back. So that's going to be a fun project. I host the real estate Cheeseman podcast with Lynn. It was real estate heifers, but I think I like real estate cheeseman better now. So if you're confused, I did switch it. And yeah, you can follow me on my Instagram is Money Cheeseman, and I also host the Money Cheeseman podcast, but that's more catered to just general like finance stuff, documenting my journey and talking about money stuff over there.
And
Cool.
quickly, Emily, what's new with you? I think you just came out with a new recording on your podcast, but what's up with you recently?
Yeah, Gus and I just did an episode, I think we recorded last week with Zuber. And so we just released that last night. And so that's on, all the podcast places and that also on YouTube. And shameless plug, if anybody will go subscribe to the actual podcast, like on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, all those, Spotify, it's hard to find because it's small. And so there's a link in my Instagram bio. So if anybody would go subscribe to that, I would greatly appreciate it because I think it will help us come up more in search and stuff like that. I know most people watch it on YouTube, but we do get downloads on there as well. And I want people to be able to find it. So I'm going to plug me and Gus there on the My House podcast.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I haven't got a chance to listen to it, but I'm sure it's a great episode. You guys are doing a lot of cool stuff. I think even Gus just came out with a new episode on his channel with some week, and I was just recording with Gus on Sunday, so I'm not sure when that one's coming out, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, let's dig into. I'm not sure exactly how long your guys' journeys have been. I guess I would say I'm maybe 6 years into my true investing side in real estate. I mean, I got my first property though in 2008. But let's kind of dig into maybe checklists, investor headaches, when kind of evaluating a property. So I don't know how far you guys want to go back to, like the when you first see something on the MLS or when someone brought to you, or more from a once you find something you kind of like. So, Violetta, maybe you can start.
I love this because every time I go walk through a property, like I learn something different. And matter of fact, with this one, I'm actually going more into like the hazards like lead and asbestos. But I'll get into that in a little bit later. But I think initially, you since I'm an out of state investor, I always utilize the pictures. I go through like Google and kind of like go back and see if there was like on Google Maps to see if there's any pictures of the property, because of course they take the fancy pictures, but then if you go on Google you could kind of see like the actual how the actual house looks like. So I usually start with that. Of course I usually have a realtor, and then they go and do a walkthrough through like FaceTime and stuff. And so that's kind of been a learning curve, as well as I learn what to look for, which is like, why I wanted to like definitely like do this topic, because it's a lot of things I've learned the hard way, especially like with the plumbing and like the exterior stuff. And I think I want to start off with like the exterior things that I typically look for. Of course, the roof. Yeah, we do little visuals, and usually the the inspector does that for me and everything. But I usually, want to ask like, how old is this roof? When's the last time that you replaced it, and and then based on the inspection, they kind of like take pictures of that. But that's after you're done in contracts, so it's a lot of visual inspection. So it's a lot of learning what to look for, like broken shingles, are trees touching the roof, because that means like that's probably damaging the shingles. Making sure that there's no like broken shingles. First of all, the type of roof that you're getting as well. And so that's the first things that I look at in regards to the roof. And then outside, I look at the windows to make sure there's no rotting around the windows. And if so, like just document it. Because most of these, like, you're looking at them. It doesn't mean like don't buy the property, because it might still be a good deal. But it's just things that you can use later on to like negotiate better. So the windows, depending on the type of property, like if it's brick or wood or whatever, just looking at that, the type of foundation that it has. One thing I've been noticing over here in Texas is foundation issues happen a lot over here. So that's one thing that I'm learning to kind of look at more, because in Milwaukee I did like basements. They had basements, so then I had to look at that, and that's a whole thing that I had to learn about. Of looking at the condition of the basement, the plumbing. Plumbing has been like my biggest learning curve, of like learning to uh, look underneath the sinks, because most of the time a lot of these old landlords like to use these kind of forget what they're called, but they're like those accordion for the
Oh,
P trap. Oh, I hate those. They're always, I think every single one has always had those accordion style. I forget what they're called. The
it's a
little
P trap, but it's the
Yes.
fancy ones. And bad
Yeah.
flippers love those too.
Yeah, they love to have those, and those are horrible because those just get clogged. So I usually always have to replace those, and then yeah, just making sure cracks, things like that. As far as the exterior, and making sure there's the trees that are too close to the house, besides touching the roof, like the roots can be going into like the foundation, messing up the plumbing. um Checking how old that tree is. If it looks like it's rotting and it might fall on somebody, like go ahead, just cut that down, and things like that.
Lynn, or sorry, Violeta. I'm sorry. I'm so used to watching you guys together. I apologize. So when you talk about the foundations in Texas, you were talking about Milwaukee. They have basements, and there's a lot of foundation problems in Texas. Do they have a lot of basements in Texas, or are they more on slab? What are you seeing most of in your area?
I see mostly slabs. It's very, I haven't seen from the ones that I've like looked at, like none of them have had basements, but in Milwaukee it's kind of the norm to have a basement, as far as the multifamilies that I buy. But like this one that I bought, it's actually on pier and beam, so it's
Okay.
not even on a slab. But I did, as I was shopping around, I did find some other properties, and they were on slabs, and they just had cracks and just like misleveled. So those were the big issues that I would see in Texas. But yeah.
And then on the pier and beam, if they're misleveled, that's probably easier to level than like a slab, right? Because then they just pump it up and kind of
Yeah.
the whole slab being messed up.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things I'll probably have to do with this property in the future. It's not too misleveled, so it's something that I could plan to do in maybe a few more years, to just lift up. It's just like the kitchen area is a little bit, but it's not that bad. So but yeah, so that one, depending, is usually a little bit better than a slab, because then you have to like really, because I know my parents had to do that recently, and it was expensive. I think, I don't even remember, but it was close to like 20 grand to like level the house again. So
Yeah. Interesting. It's so crazy how differently they build in different areas. And I mean, obviously they have to because water tables and all that, but it's just crazy how different it is regionally.
yeah.
So yeah, before I know Emily, you have more of a contractor background, right? So you're probably going to have a lot more information to share with us. So, but is that also where some of the struggle comes from, right? So when you first started buying properties, like how, I guess, detail oriented were you, trying to inspect these properties? And now I know you've talked about it too. You're possibly looking at going out of state with your portfolio. How has
Mhm.
that been trying to, with the knowledge that you have in your own area, now maybe looking at properties outside? But
I think it's scary because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm super distrustful because I watch how realtors operate. And so,
Mhm.
unless I bought somewhere that I really had somebody there that I knew and trusted, uh, there are realtors I really trust, but I just see like in my market, if I were not to be my own realtor, there's like two people I would trust, and I feel like are really doing a great job. And so, if you it's just scary the odds of finding one that's going to show you every little nook and cranny, because even like Violeta was kind of saying, you look at the pictures and then you look at the real pictures. So unless you have somebody that you think is being really honest, they're what are they not showing? Did they not happen to FaceTime me around this angle of the house? And you can say, okay, go show me this, go show me that. And I just think of my nervousness when I have a client who doesn't live in town and we're doing FaceTime or video showings. And I'm so, okay, here's everything I can possibly find that's wrong with the house. Here's the trim. Here's the corner outside on the foundation. I just want to show them everything that might be wrong. And not every realtor is going to be that way. So I think it is scary about what's wrong or what's wrong that I don't know for this area. Because for
Mhm.
instance, in my area, a couple things that are common problems, and they're fixable, right? Radon. We have to do a lot of radon mitigation, but if you didn't come from an area with radon, you wouldn't even know that's
Mhm.
something in certain areas to think about or look for or not, which is fixable. The other scary one is we have a lot of, it's called subsidence. We are undermined, like half to three quarters of our town. We have huge, expansive abandoned coal mines under most of our town. And so it's just the reality, and it's most of our market. But there's certain insurances you can get. There's certain areas they've mitigated. So for years, they pumped this stuff underground to try to stabilize and fill abandoned mine shafts. And then there's areas that have been treated and haven't. There's one area that there's a burning, it's literally on a map from engineers, and it's got it's a burning underground mine fire that who knows how long it will burn because there's just coal down there, right? Which most people have houses over this and it's fine, but you would want to know that. And there's certain
Mhm.
areas that haven't been treated and they do have structural problems. If your realtor did not share that with you, if you could not feel the floor walking through the house, but maybe you can't see it in pictures that well, but you can feel it walking in there. So I think that's really scary if you don't have someone boots on the ground that either you really trust or doesn't have a vested interest in you buying that property.
Yeah, I would say that that's true because that's one of the things that I've learned to deal with, like realtors, that they don't look at some, like, they don't know what to specifically look at. So you definitely want to get like one that's more investor friendly. I've learned that throughout the time. So if I go back to Milwaukee, I'm gonna find another one because the one that I did have, I missed a few things that probably shouldn't have been missed had they've been an investor friendly one, that I'm having to fix now. But I do want to kind of like piggyback off Emily, because you were mentioning that one of the things is also knowing that market of what you possibly need to look at, of the type of properties that are there. So like I wouldn't even have thought of radon, and also like the types of properties that you get, like asbestos and lead and things like that, knowing the age of the property, and that's going to tell you like, oh, what possible hazards can I be looking at? For example, the one that I have has asbestos insulation.
Oh,
And so
sure.
that's yeah. So those little pebble asbestos, that, you know, was common back in the 1940s, 1950s. So that's something that I'll have to mitigate and stuff. But I knew that going in. And so, uh, yeah, just understanding what's available. Cause like, yeah, if I went to your market, like that's one of the things you needed to see, like what has been happening around that, because I wouldn't have thought that there was like mines underneath.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, a huge part of the town. And it's
Yeah.
normal for us because we know that. But I heard a story a couple years ago of a lady that bought a property and she was a geologist. And so this was her complaining after her transaction to a realtor that I know. Her realtor didn't mention anything about it to her. And she's like, I would have never bought an undermined house. And you know what? I have several. To me, it's whatever. It is what it is. You know, like I said, it's half of our town. But
Hmm.
she came in from out of town. Her realtor did not even give her that information to be able to make that decision. And maybe, you know what? Maybe her realtor didn't know. There's lots of realtors, again, that some are malicious and some just are ignorant. And
Hmm.
she was like, I would have never bought in this neighborhood if I had known that. And my realtor didn't give me any of that information as the market expert.
Yeah.
Cam is asking, what market is Emily in?
I'm in Rock Springs, Wyoming. So we have a lot of industry here. We have like the world's largest trona deposit. We have a lot of coal mining history. We have a lot of natural gas. And so we were kind of a Union Pacific town on a mine for years, is like the origins of the town.
Hmm.
And are you still looking to invest out of state possibly, or are you doubling down in your market, do you think?
So right now what I'm doing is there have just been a lot of good opportunities to flip in my market. So I have 2 flips going right now. I just put another one under contract maybe a week ago, and none of these I plan to hold on to. And so I am just doing that to increase cash flow, and then when good things come up to buy and hold, I would like to buy some more multifamily, I think, rather than single. I feel like I'm plodding along with single family homes. And so I'm looking for multifamily here. If something really good came up somewhere else, I would be open to it. But right now, flips are working. So I figured then that cash will be available if I see a multifamily that is like, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to maybe like the beginning part of what you're looking for in a property. So let's say you can't walk the property initially. Do you go straight to looking at the photos and start trying to evaluating it, or is it numbers first that you kind of run through first? Violeta, maybe you can talk about
For
that.
me, it would be the numbers first, because then I would just be wasting my time if the numbers don't work. And so if I go and look at it and um, based on the price or whatever, and I do the calculations or whatever, and it's cash flowing, then I start digging deeper into the property and start looking at the pictures and start looking at things that I might need to fix. And then once that's okay, and I like, okay, I want to actually look at this property, then I ask the realtor to go there. And I things that I always ask is like the condition, the age of the HVAC, the water heaters, age of that, roof, the plumbing, how's like the plumbing going, like they'll flush the toilet and stuff and see if like there's slow drainage or things like that. So um things like that I will ask for during the first walkthrough, that things that I could kind of look. But again, it's like I had to rely on the eyes of the realtor, which sometimes wasn't the best. Luckily, like I would get these properties at a good deal, and then of course the inspection helped me out too. So then I could catch more things that the realtor didn't look. I was like, wow, they didn't see that that this window was like broken or whatever, or didn't mention it around it, like the wood and stuff. So um and then they'll just do like a visual inspection inside, checking for cracks, like things like that. So those are like the first initial things I start to look at, besides the age of the home, because a lot of mine are like older properties. So then I start thinking about like lead, like, oh, like is there potential exposed lead paint? Most of these have already been painted over a lot of times. So um and then same thing with asbestos. For the ones in Milwaukee, I didn't have to deal with this, but this was over here. There's more older properties that have asbestos, so that's something new that I'm dealing with now and learning about. So
I feel like Texas, I don't know anything about Milwaukee, so it could be the same, but I feel like there's so much boom and bust cycle there with oil and gas and industry that I think some of those building materials that just came and went and came and went, you're going to see such a, depending on the boom and bust cycles of where you're buying, you're going to see a variety of as you grow your investing portfolio in Texas.
Yeah, because here I live in a rural town right now, and like I started off looking here, but everything had like asbestos siding, and I was like, I don't know about that, especially since some of them were kind of like a little bit broken and things like that. And one thing I do want to mention, I did he did he leave?
Yeah, no, so they're having a lot of rain and his power just went out.
Okay, I was like, but
Go and see if he can get back on.
yeah. So one little, thing for those that aren't familiar with asbestos is that there's asbestos. I think is before 1970, is if I remember correctly, around there. If you buy a property that's older than that, then you're looking at like lead and asbestos. And usually that's like the shingles. They've done flooring, like tile flooring, the
Extra
siding.
on the ceiling, when you see the glitter in the ceiling, a lot of times that's an asbestos ceiling.
Yeah. And then of course now with the insulation, which was something new that I didn't realize about. I knew like shingles and stuff like that, but I did not realize that there was insulation that looked like
Mhm.
little rocks, and it's like inside and everything. And so those are things to look at, but uh, the danger there is obviously the little fibers that get into your lungs, and you don't, like have an effect right away. It's just like in the future, it just scars your lungs over, and then like eventually have problems with that. So the big deal with that is disturbing it and breaking it and stuff, and making those fibers airborne. So that's the big danger with that, which is why it can get pricey to mitigate that and have all these asbestos companies. But the reason I still went with this one was because during my research, because I was like, asbestos insulation, what the heck? And like, well, come to find out, there's actually like a trust from, I think it was from the company or something like that. They have a trust where they will reimburse you like 50% of the
Oh, of
cost.
abatement?
Yes.
I didn't know about that.
So yeah, the only thing I had to do is prove, they have a little like requirements of like proving that it's from that company or whatever. So yeah, so that's gonna be something that I'll be doing. And so yeah, that one was kind of cool. It's like, oh wow, I'm gonna get like a little break from that. So uh yeah, so I see people still investing in some houses over here. I've seen some that I think there's like a random investor over here that has been fixing up some of these properties, and they just fixed the siding. Obviously it's not asbestos siding, but I guess there's a dupe that just looks like it, and it just blends right in with the current siding that it has. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, and the thing with asbestos, I think, as an investor and lead and all that type of stuff is it's one of those things that there's a risk to it, but it can be dealt with properly. It's just expensive. And so when you're
Hmm.
budgeting in to deal with something like that, you really need to get those numbers because that can really blow up your budget because only certain companies can deal with it. And
Hmm.
so, of course, they're going to charge you a higher fee because they have special credentials and they have special licenses and all those
Yeah.
things. So it's just going to be really expensive. And that's just something you need to factor into your numbers.
Yeah, and I will say a little add on to that, because in some areas you are able to do it yourself. It's something I think I saw over here in Texas, that you just gotta know where to dispose of. But I would not, if you're not, if you do not know, because a little bit a background about me, like I have a background in safety and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that I would go like sample and stuff like that. So like on the ship, I would, when we had to deal with asbestos, because there's some asbestos around like some parts of ships. And so then I got to go monitor and all that. And then they have all this, personal protective equipment that you have to use, and respirators and all that stuff. So don't try to do these things by yourself, because you'll see it on YouTube. I see some people, because when I was researching, there's like, oh, you just need this. And I was like, I think to me is not worth, because the risk of my health in the future, because these companies are going to have the proper equipment and stuff. I looked on how they would do the process on YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay. So and also you do have to let the tenants know. So like, for example, lead, you're going to have that lead disclosure and stuff like that. So
I want to tie into that because a lot of investors don't know. So when you do a real estate transaction, if a home was built before 1978, it is a law. It's a federal law. You have to give your purchaser or your renter a lead-based paint disclosure. So if you have properties that were built prior to 1978 and you or your manager is not giving them that disclosure, if they do audits on stuff like that, I think for agents, I don't know if it's the same for the public, it's $10,000 a property if they catch you and you didn't do that. And then obviously if something happened, liability or whatever, it's just one of those things you have to do. So make sure if your property was built before 1978, when you do your leases, you're always including some sort of lead-based paint disclosure to your renters.
yeah, because a lot of those investors that are self-managing, they won't know that, and they probably have these properties. So yeah, if you're self-managing, like Emily said, make sure that you have those disclosures.
One thing I want to mention is that Mark abandoned us just now.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that's why everyone said
we
they
just
didn't
had the
notice I was
best
gone.
conversation and you weren't here.
So what did I miss? That's what I'm
talking about asbestos. But I want to go very back to the beginning about talking about when you're looking at buying a property. One thing that I see people run into all the time because they don't have the knowledge, and a lot of agents don't have the knowledge to lead them in the right direction, is this property even financeable or is it not financeable? A lot of investment properties, when they come up for sale, you have an absentee slumlord who has absolutely ran it into the ground. And of course, we're all looking for a good deal, right? Especially now when we're trying to do cash flow. Some of those properties that are at a price that makes sense, they're that price because you're not going to be able to get a loan on those properties. And I don't think a lot of the public understands this because, excuse me, I will get a call all the time whenever I have a really cheap house or a trashed house that we have on the market. And it's like a $40,000 house, an $80,000 house. You get a million calls and people are like, oh, I'm only pre-qualified for X amount. I can't believe this came on. And it's like, you cannot get a loan on this house. And so sometimes agents are not informed enough to have this conversation with their sellers up front of, when I have a client with a fixer up, or we have the conversation, are you selling it as is, which means this is going to be an investor with cash or a construction loan or a rehab loan or a private lender, or it's financeable, meaning they can get an FHA loan, a conventional loan, maybe even a rural development, VA, WCDA, which in my Wyoming Community Development Authority. And sometimes we'll say, well, I only want to do lender required repairs, meaning the buyer can't negotiate anything they want, but we'll do enough to make it financeable if the appraiser requires it. And people don't know the difference. So if you're playing, hey, I'm buying my first house with an FHA conventional loan, or I have access to private money, or whatever, you need to know going into it. And then if that realtor has not been educated enough, like I have clients that will find properties and there's clearly a bunch of repairs that are going to be lender required repairs. These are things like if there's peeling paint and the house was built before 1978, that's going to have to be scraped, the chips removed, and then painted over. They call it like stabilizing or encapsulating. If you have roofs that are in bad shape, those have to be in condition. If you have knob and tube wiring, if you don't have handrails on more than like 3 to 40 something inches of rise, you have to have them. So we go and we ask, are they willing to address repairs or not? Because I've seen deals where agents, not in my office, but agents do this and then they get in the middle of it and they're like, oh, this wasn't even financeable. Your buyer paid for an appraiser. The seller's not going to fix anything. This deal falls apart 20 something days in. And we knew from the beginning, if those realtors would have been informed, that this deal wasn't going to happen, right? And so you got to know, because your realtor might not, what buy box you're looking in. Do you have cash or not? Because some of these properties might not even be an option for you if you don't.
Yeah, and like All Nighter Hider was mentioning that even some lenders won't go below 70K, and I know I had a lender that wouldn't go below 80,000 when I was looking at this, and that's something that I had to learn as well, like earlier on when I'm looking, because I was like, oh, 80,000, like, or something like that, and then I start looking at it, I was like, oh, that's why, because it's not going to, I'm not going to be able to get an actual regular conventional loan for this. And even with the DSCR, I had to drop one property because yeah, it just wasn't going to be financeable. So then, I mean, I kept looking, and then I found this one. But yeah, that's one thing too, that you're gonna see all these properties out there, but you're gonna need like private lenders or hard money lenders, and then you have to account for the extra stuff for that. So one of the things that real quick I had to learn with the hard money lender, because I don't have the experience of the like full rehabs and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to pay higher like down payment and things like that, that usually I'm used to like 20-25%, and I needed to be like way higher than that. So I was like, oh, never mind, I'll just go back to my DSCR loan.
And there are people that will do these smaller loans or weird loans, but they're like you were saying, they're going to be higher interest rates, higher down payment. Of course, it has to be worth it to them, because we're not just going to loan tons of money to somebody for no reason. It's a business for them too. And so, there are DSCR loans that will go below, but they're harder to find. They're going to be maybe higher origination. You can do, if you build a relationship with a local bank or a bank in the area where you're buying your properties. I've done some weird construction loans or just commercial loans, but I'm putting good down payments down and paying a higher interest rate, but it's still better than hard money. So there's always a way, but you're going to have to factor that into your numbers, because the expense of borrowing that money is going to be different.
Yeah, very true. I think I want to also touch on, I'm sure maybe both of you, when you first started investing also, like the 1% rule might have been something you use as part of your checklist when evaluating a property, right? So does that still apply today, or is that a metric that you guys folks still kind of use to evaluate a deal? Maybe Emily, or hey, have you used the 1% before?
I don't like all these, hey, this is the trendy thing, like I have literally purchased things that I've talked about this before, but I had somebody that seller financed something to me one time, but they wanted it to be on a 15-year note, and they didn't make me put any money down. And I was like, I'm not going to buy it. So I bought it for the value in the market. I literally was losing money because it was month to month, I was losing money because it was a 15-year mortgage, but I had no cash out of pocket. So it wasn't any opportunity cost of investing in something else. So I thought at any time I convert this to a 30-year, it will cash flow. And, but I literally was not cash flowing anything, but I knew the market. I mean, now that house is worth, let me see, what did I buy it for? It's probably worth $80,000 more than I bought it for. And I fixed it up as renters have trashed it, but I never put any money down on it. So there's games you play that are not, hey, I don't care, the cash flow, that's not something I've ever used. I look at how things are going to appreciate in a market. Now, as I'm getting older, I look at cash flow a little bit more, because when I was 20 something, I thought, I have all this time. I'm just waiting. I'm just parking it and waiting. But now I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I want to think about cash flow a little bit more, because 30 years is different from now than when you're 22, And so that's not something I really played by. And I think right now the market's a little bit tougher. So if it's like, hey, if we can just get into things and they make sense and they flow a little bit, or they're in an area that is going to appreciate, depends what game you're playing. But we kind of got spoiled when interest rates were lower. And I think we all are having to approach a little differently now.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't use the 1% either. I just do the numbers and what's going to cash flow for me. So yeah, like basically Emily said it all. Like, yeah, just whatever works for you and your goals and stuff. And like with this property, yeah, right now I'm still cash flow positive, but it's not what I would typically go for. But because of the potential of where it's at and ability to add maybe like 2 more units in the back, like then that in itself is like what I'm looking for in the future. So yeah, it really depends on what you're doing and the opportunity, and things that might be potential in the future might not work right this second, but in another year or so, then you have opportunity there, whether it's a house that maybe has a basement and you could finish it out and then you could cash flow. So it really just depends.
Yeah, I agree to both Gus and All Nighter Hider's comments here. Gus does say 1% isn't a solid method, in my opinion, because many other factors are included in that. And then Hider says Yeah, it's at a glance metrics. Yes, I think yeah, it does have a lot of flaws, but I think it's just a quick way to get a general idea if you should look further into the property. So I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't use it and take it, take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's a quick way to just get a good idea if the property can make somewhat sense, right? As if the rent is enough to the purchase price, it can give you a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
The
Um,
the flashy catchphrases like that all the, kind of gurus and coaches use for a while, they're kind of dangerous because it's kind of like, here's the tagline, comma, also, right? But if you just read the tagline and you're a beginner or you're a newbie investor, and then you don't listen to everything they say after, then people like make these their, this is my mantra, and it's like, or my mantra or whatever. And it's like, okay, but also here's all the things they said after. And so anything like that like sticks in public opinion, I'm always a little nervous about, because it's like you get the sentence, but then like, did you read the paragraph after the sentence? And I think that's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, yeah, I will say, like, if you're a new investor or thinking about an investor, yeah, be careful with those taglines because it's like it's all over. It's, clickbaity a little bit, like, yeah, 1%, whatever. But then you have to read all the extra stuff that goes into it, and the same with the kind of like the fear baiting and stuff. Like, read the fine print too. So.
One thing I want to talk about, and you've talked about plumbing a little bit, but is sewer cameras. When I
Mm-hmm.
started investing in real estate, nobody had sewer cameras. And even when I started being a real estate agent, none of our inspectors, I mean, some plumbers probably did, but no one had that as part of their home inspection process. And a sewer line issue can be easily a $10,000 to $20,000 repair. And now I'm telling all my clients, and it's not even okay. I have had houses cameraed because when I buy a flip, I kind of, as a contractor, don't really need anything looked at. If there's something weird structurally, I'll have a structural engineer look at it for me. If there's I like to have the sewer lines cameraed. If I can't, if it's something where I have to give a quick as is offer, in my head, I'm budgeting $15,000 for that sewer line. If I don't have to, great. But it's just something that can be so expensive for a homeowner buying a normal house. And the issues that I have had tree root problems with, and it's not even just tree roots. I'll post a video on my Instagram. Me and Gus, like a couple weeks ago, I went on one of his podcasts we were filming, and my renter is sending me videos of the sewage backing up. It blew the clean out off, and it was backing up into the basement. I don't even have trees on this property. It's the neighbor's trees. And it's something I have to deal with, right? It's one of those maintenance things that every 6 months, every year, maybe you have someone come clean out your sewer lines. But if there was a collapse or damage, those can be really expensive problems. And so unless you're in your head going, okay, I'm budgeting that there might be a $10,000 sewer line problem, if you're a normal homeowner or you don't have that in your budget, make sure you're paying the extra $150 or whatever to get a camera in that sewer line, because it could save you tens of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
did I hear you right? So that's one of your properties,
Yeah.
or so I kind of want to also touch on that a little bit because I think that will be helpful for especially newer investors. So like you have a contracting background, right? And you do a lot of rehabs, and even like you just said, one of your properties had a sewer issue, right? So I think a lot of times people when they get started, they feel like they failed or something. Like they didn't do a certain checklist, or they're not knowledgeable enough to buy a certain invest because they don't know enough about the contracting side, right? So I just want that as an example, like someone like you who has this background in contracting and you do rehabs and flips, and yet even some of your properties, these issues still come up, right?
Let me tell you about my last 2.5 or so weeks. All right. So sitting here Sunday morning, right in this spot, podcasting for one of Gus's podcasts with Gus and Friends, and shout out Gus, go subscribe to his YouTube channel. And I'm getting a message. I'm trying not to, because it's rude, right? Like I'm on my phone and stuff, and I'm getting this video, and there's just water pumping out of the floor. My renter's sending it to me in this basement. Just renovated this basement apartment, by the way, and the laundry room's right next to it. And she had the washing machine had backed up a couple, and I've had this property for like 10 years, so they didn't have sewer cameras when I bought this. And we had a plumber go and charge me like $1,000. No, it was like $500 to do no, it was a lot. It was like 500 for one thing, 1,000 for another thing to make a repair to this line. And I'm like, well, obviously it didn't fix it. Well, they thought they had pushed a clog through, but apparently it didn't go far enough through. So now it's Sunday. Of course, it's always after 5 p.m. or Saturday or Sunday or, And so I'm like, well, I got to go suck up all this water because I don't want it to go into the apartment under the vinyl floor and then be like a sandwich for mold. So I take a shot vac and a pump and everything over there, and I get a hold of a plumber and I'm like, hey, because we don't have a lot of emergency people here. Like they will come if they answer their phone, but they just don't always answer their phone. So I'm like, I got to at least pump the water out. So I go pump the water out. They come and they bring their for the sewer line thing. And there are roots, like crazy roots in this sewer line. Again, there's no trees on my property, but it's an old part of town. So they've told me those roots can come from, five properties away. It doesn't matter if you don't have any. And so these huge roots, they get them taken out. I think we're probably good now moving forward. So I put fans because I'm like, let's dry it out so then we can clean everything. I get fans over there and then I, go home for the day and whatever. Think we're good. So then at like 10 o'clock at night, the renter gets a hold of me. She's like, oh, I did notice it was kind of chilly today. I think I blew out the pilot light with the fans, but it's winter. So we have the backup of the sewer line. I'm pretty sure I blew out the pilot light of the furnace. So I go over there at like 10 o'clock at night, relight the pilot light. It's fine. That's all that it was. Next day, 6 a.m. I get a text message from a different renter and her basement is flooding. I've had this property for 13 years. It's the first property I ever bought. Completely different person. Recently finished the basement. It's never flooded, but I finished it last year. Basement's flooding. And I'm like, where? From the window well. So I go over to the property. The neighbor's gutter is coming into my backyard because they don't have an extension on the neighbor because it's a townhouse. And it's flooding into my window well, filling the window well, and then flooding the basement. The neighbors who last year called me because they didn't like that the trees were dropping debris in their yard. So I paid $2,500 to cut down like 20-year-old trees because they bought this house and were complaining. So their water is now not drained properly and flooded my basement. So I get my pumps, I get my shop vac, I get my fans because now the other one is dried out, and we go over there and we get everything pumped out. I call my gutter guy. I tell the neighbor, hey, I'm cutting your freaking gutter and I'm rooting it down my backyard. So I have these gutters going like 20 feet down the backyard of my property just to get them away, and at least I can see it and control it because I don't want to do it on their side because I don't know if they'll maintain it, right? They haven't. So this is a matter of, this is Sunday to Monday. So I bought a house to flip. We know I have a structural engineer come look at it because there's like this small crack. So I just want to be able to give an engineer's report to the future buyer. And before we close it all up, I want to make sure it's all good and we have pictures documented so they can make an educated, fair decision. He's like, yep, this is good. There's one room, a fully unfinished basement. There's one room that's finished in this house that we bought. And my framer's like, hey, you know what? I'd rather do my own framing. Let's pull this all out. Pulls the framing out. Big ass crack. Can't see it. The only finished room. And so I'm like, okay, I need to call my engineer back because, again, I want to make sure this is okay and it's documented. It is, but you have that couple days where you're like, oh my gosh, like, is this now something that has to be a rental because I can't ethically sell this to somebody? And it was fine. But the one finished room had this big crack down it, and we can do an epoxy injection sealant and we're fine and all that. But this is the matter of, you have months where nothing happens. And then in a matter of like 3 days, you have all of these things going on and you can't really plan for. I mean, I had the property that flooded. The first one, I've had it for like 10 years and then that happened, right? The next one I've had for 13 years and then that happened and it never happened before. And you can plan for it, but ultimately the biggest thing is you need to have a budget to know that emergencies are going to come, because if you say you buy your first property and you put all your money into it and then your furnace goes out. I've bought 2 properties that the day after I bought them, the furnaces went out in the middle of winter, right? Just happens. It just does. So you have to have financial reserves for when this type of stuff happens.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing with the water heaters, like one of my properties. And same thing, the furnace started having issues and I just had to replace I forget what it was, but yeah, I had to replace something like that same year and 2 water heaters because of the same house, because they just like crapped out and stuff.
Mhm.
But I do want to like mention, like, yeah, sometimes since we're talking about like what to look at a property, like we're thinking, I was like, oh, let me make sure the roof, the HVAC and stuff like that. But yeah, like you were talking about, like sometimes you got to look at your neighbors as well. Like, is their tree going over your property? Like, because it might not be touching a roof yet, but maybe in another year is going to start, touching, or like I didn't even think to look at like their rain gutters going into your property. So like just things like that, and it's just some of the things like Emily was saying, like they just come up and you won't learn about it until they come up, like the rain gutters. Like I would, been for a while, but it wouldn't occur to me to think about that of the neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, ours, but not the neighbors.
Or we just had this huge windstorm in Wyoming, and I saw, it's happened here, but this was another town, a tree fell on a house, right? Is your
Mm-hmm.
neighbor's tree going to fall on your house? And then
Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with that? I mean, there's all these things, and I think you have to realize going into it that you got to control your mindset, because it'll destroy you. And it's not for everybody. Some people can't deal with it, but it's just one of those things that it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And so I think you have to mentally be prepared for dealing with these things and problem solving and not letting it wreck your world. Because one thing I have found with rental property investing is what I said before, it's always after 5 p.m. and it's always on a weekend. It's never,
Mm-hmm.
9 a.m. on a Monday that I have a serious problem that I can't resolve myself. And it is going to happen, and it's probably going to happen all at the same time. I will have months where I don't get a call on any of my rentals, because that same week I got a call about a washing machine. I got a call about a dishwasher. I had a refrigerator, ice maker. We've been trying to find a repairman to repair for months. But for 3 months, no one's called me about anything, right? But then in this whole week, it was all these things at once. And it just seems to be how it goes. So then you go, oh, I'm ready to buy another property too. Oh, screw this. I'm done for a minute, and then you wait a month and everything's good. And you're like, okay, I'm ready to buy. And then you buy one, you're like, oh shit.
That is so true, because with mine, like I was doing just fine, and then bam, I think it was like either a 500 or 1,000 year flood. And so
Oh,
like all like, well, two out of the three like had flooding a little bit in the basement. So then we had that, which then caused I think it shorted out one of the furnaces or something down there. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, like, and then I'll go months with just like everything's going just rainbows and sunshine, and then bam. But like that's why you need to have like your emergency funds, and then of course when you're buying, like have that extra cushion for things that you may not have seen off the bat. So I've learned that as well, as when buying properties, buying like, oh, okay, it's fine, and then like it's like as soon as you turn over, like you sign, and it's like, oh, this came up and this came up. It's like, but luckily, I have that cushion for when things come up. So yeah, so don't go in there using up all your money just for acquiring the property. Just have that cushion.
one suggestion I want to make too, when you talk about when you're looking at properties, and I make this suggestion to a lot of my clients that are buying even just kind of an older home or a home with a lot of deferred maintenance. Make sure you know the place you're buying, whether it's municipal, like a city or a state, what the requirements are for a home inspector. And if the home inspector is really knowledgeable, because I follow some home inspectors on Instagram who are really experts in their craft. They are really knowledgeable. They basically have the knowledge of a really competent contractor. I have ran into several contractors where they are flat out wrong. They are, or not contractors, home inspectors, they are idiots, and they're just not correct. My state does not require home inspectors to be licensed and insured.
Mm-hmm.
They can be, but Wyoming does not require it. Now, the next thing is, I think a lot of them just take an online class. So, a lot of these guys, some of the stuff they're saying is they're really fear mongering buyers over things that are not big deals. And then things that they should be highlighting, they're not. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of times, what I will recommend if you are starting to invest in property or you're buying an older house and you're not that knowledgeable and you're nervous, instead of a home inspector, I would hire a structural engineer to look at the structure. And I know you go, oh yeah, that's expensive. Well, you know, it's expensive getting in a house that now is not sellable. I would hire a structural engineer. I would hire a roofer. I would hire an HVAC company. I would hire a plumber to scope your cameras or camera your sewer line. I would hire, I don't know if I said electrician, but like those things that you know, if they come up, I don't have the money to fix these huge mechanical systems in my house. Have an expert look at it. Don't have a home inspector who really doesn't know that much look at it. Like, so that's my 2 cents. And even when I buy stuff, like I don't really do home inspections, but I'll get a structural, I'll get a sewer camera, you know, stuff like that. Is this roof certifiable? Is it not? Because then you have the experts really telling you, because if a home inspector finds it, they're just going to say, oh, we recommend you have the expert look at it. And then you're paying twice. And if the home inspector doesn't catch it, could be even worse. I don't care if I have a drip under my faucet, right? I care if my sewer lines need a $20,000 replacement.
Yeah, I agree. That's one thing I am planning to do more in the future. I didn't think of the structural engineer, but I was like, man, I'm gonna start like getting electricians and plumbers come look at these houses, because yeah, you're right. Like an inspector's only gonna look at certain things. Luckily, I've had pretty good inspectors that have had a lot of experience and things like that. So yeah, that's one of the things. If you are going to look at inspector, like ask them questions, their experience, what their processes, what they look at. Are they like the one that I used here? He's an investor himself. Uh so then he knows extra things to look at and explained everything, and even their reports. Because it's funny that when I was buying this property, they sent me a home inspection, which, by the way, if the seller did one, or there was one throughout that process while they were selling it, because maybe they had somebody else, they should be giving you that inspection as well. So, but their report was like short, and then the one that my inspector had was like 75 pages or something like that. So even that will show you like how detailed they go into. And he took like a lot of pictures, like a lot of pictures. So that was nice. And I wanted to talk, because since we were talking about the sewer cameras, like Marlon just said that he just saved 10K at closing because of the sewer camera. So that's something I'm gonna start implementing in future properties for sure.
I just want to, so the kind of theme I guess everyone is saying in the chat is, so like Kyle Dorn, who is financially free, and his expense is like $600 a month, and a lot of people don't believe him or can't believe he's living off of that. But it's all about income and expenses, right? And cutting back expenses, and you can be financially free. But he says, sum up the show, we all get our asses kicked all the time, and it never stops, but you'll learn to enjoy every second of it. So I think that's, and Marlon RE says, enjoy the process. That is life. So I think a lot of people here that have been investing for some time would tell everyone, anyone starting, right? It is kind of part of the journey. The first 5 years suck. I did see Dion tuning in a little bit earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he always talks about that too. Yeah, and they talk about the first 5 years of suck. But I see Curtis here, PE turned RE. He does have a good question. He says, in the beginning, would you say it's okay to have the bare minimum reserves to get the first or next deal? Emily, what's your thoughts on that?
So I guess tell me what bare minimum reserves it. So I think you have to decide your level of risk, right? So I hear some investors talk about, if something would have happened, luckily it didn't, but if something would have happened, I would have had no money to deal with it. And that's how they grew, because it's harder, and it's harder now to acquire stuff. Even I'm noticing, right, than it was when I was starting, because prices are higher. And so things, you got to put more down or whatever to get the cash flow. So I get that. I think it's, do you have the ability to access the money? And so you might not have the money sitting in an account, but do you have access where, hey, I could do a line of credit from my bank, or like if my furnace goes out, do I have some way to get the money? Do I have a family member I could borrow it from? Do I have a bank that would lend it to me? A lot of credit unions do small loans for stuff like that. So I think the thing is just, do you have access to it? Because if you're if your furnace goes out in the middle of winter, you have to fix it. If you're an investor in Arizona and your AC goes out, I'm pretty sure you have to fix it or put your renters in a hotel, right? Like there's rules and things that you have to provide. So it's not necessarily that you have the money, but you have access to the money, because money sitting doesn't do anything for you except peace of mind, right? So you just have to make sure you have access to it somewhere so you can cross the bridge if the problem comes.
Yeah, yeah, like you were saying, yeah, just see what you have accessible to you. Like even for me, uh, using a loan for our TSP, which is basically just 401k for the military side, like that's there that I know that I knew that if an emergency came up and I really needed to, I can get that money pretty quickly. That's with the loan, you just sign it up and whatever. But I also had access to like credit cards that I throughout years have increased that limit. That all my credit cards have a high limit. So if an emergency does come, I'm able to use those credit cards, and but also have the plan to pay it off. Don't set yourself up to just have that high debt with that high, because they do have high interest. And so definitely have that plan out. But it really depends on the property, right? Like Emily said, just outweigh, the benefits and the costs and the risk. If it's going to get you into a multifamily and then you're going to live in it or whatever, then yeah, having less reserves, but you have access to maybe a credit card or ability to get a personal loan or whatever, then th- you know the to me, having a stable income or whatever at that time, uh, I would risk it, with all those caveats. But it really depends on your financial situation and what that property is going to give you.
I also think, do you have a family counting on you? Are you single? Do you have a partner?
Hmm.
Partner that works? Do you have a partner that doesn't and depends on you? You have 4 kids who you're going to ruin their lives if you take too much risk. Like you got to know your situation. And I think like I lean naturally towards I have not taken as much risk as I could have because I am an anxious person. But one thing I'm realizing is I would want to have like these huge amounts of cash available, and then I'm like, I'm missing out on like 2 or 3 properties I could be flipping or burring or whatever a year. And I kind of realized like, okay, I have this line of credit. I don't want to use it, but I could use it. I've never even thought about, oh my gosh, I have a credit card with a huge limit, right? Like
Hmm.
until I thought like finally like the last 2 years, I'm going to take a little bit more risk so I can accelerate my growth. But I do have access if something really went wrong. I do have access to these things I could use if I have invested more of my capital than I've normally been comfortable with. So you got to know yourself. And I think you also have to know whose life are you going to ruin if you screw up. I think
Hmm.
that's got to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors involved, and I think it's even when Dion talks about even when buying your property, right? Are you facing a divorce? Where are you at in your life? Are you possibly relocating for a job? How stable is your job? Are you able to work overtime, right? So things like that. I think, but there's a big difference between your first and your next deal. I
Yes.
think your first deal, you kind of there's so much to learn getting into it. So I think I would be on the side of maybe I would be a slightly riskier because I think there's so much learning going on there. But to get the next one, it's less, there's no need to rush and, kind of let things get stabilized and make sure that first one, I think my story is I went kind of quickly, but there's a lot of learning on that first one. So you may have to be slightly riskier, but as far as getting the next one, there's always no rush. There's always deals available. And I know you get anxious because you maybe have one and you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. But there is a lot of stabilization period to understand, even just becoming a landlord and whatnot. Um,
Yeah, and it adjusts based on like your life, like Emily was saying. It's just, it doesn't mean that you have to be conservative the whole time. Now, Emily and I'm basically in the same boat too. I'm taking on a little bit more risk because I do want to scale, and also I have the ability to, because I've set myself up to be able to take that on more risk, and obviously more experience, and my network too. Have access to more people with that are knowledgeable. Emily is a contractor, and so like I could pick her brain. I could, same with the OREC community. There's a whole bunch of people there that I could, ask for advice, because not everybody, we don't all experience, like, for example, Emily, realized about the the brain gutter. So like things like that, we can't experience everything, but having a network that has a variety of experiences, that helps as well. So make sure you're you're definitely joining some networking groups.
Let's see. Was there any deal that would you say numbers wise or maybe condition or inspection that you overlooked was a more impacted you as far did you make a mistake more from a financing and running the numbers side or buying a property that just had some red flags that you may have overlooked because the numbers look so great? So Violetta, maybe your end.
Yeah, I will say that the one I bought in 2024, like I feel like I've been stabilizing that property for like a while now. I bought it, like it just can't seem to like work out, and it was mostly because of things that I overlooked, because yeah, I got lost in the numbers, and I missed out on a few things. So now I'm replacing like two windows and a few other things. But slowly getting stabilized. Now I just got to get a tenant in one of the units. But of course, with the winter, nobody wanted to move because I had a turnover during the winter time. And then of course, you know, the weather this year, we had the whole freeze and constant snow and all that stuff. So it just usually, I already know, like December, January, I'm not gonna have, I'm gonna have a vacancy because nobody wants to move around that time. But this year it extended because just it snowed longer, and so that's one of the things I to account for in the future in my Milwaukee properties if I go back to that market as well. So yeah, I think that that one is my current headache right now that I'm trying to stabilize.
What about you, Emily?
I would say, because I have been so cautious and I am such a worrier. Listen, if everything is perfect, I still wake up in the middle of the night, like making up things in my head to worry about. And then once I'm awake, I'm like, oh, what the heck, but like that's what my brain does. So I know myself, right? So I would say I definitely have not bought more things that probably would have been fine. I haven't bought anything that had something like, there's been like the one that had the crack that was hidden, not hidden. It was just in the finished room. I don't think they, hid it. It was, but we couldn't see it. But it was fixable, right? You have an engineer come look at it, you get an engineer's report, provide that to the buyer. We whatever, it's fixable. I've never had something that was like, oh my gosh, this really we can't get out of this. But again, I
Mhm.
probably bought less things than I could have, and there's things I could have bought that would have been fine. My thing is, I've always just been so fiscally cautious that I've bought a lot less than I probably could have, but I also have to be able to sleep at night. So
Yeah, I will say, yeah, like, yeah, because we're talking about all these headaches and things like that. Because I don't want to scare off like investors. Like a lot of these are just fixed. A lot of these are just headaches, right? It's not like, replacing the water heater was a headache, but it was fixable. It wasn't as pricey as I thought it would have been. And same thing like with things that I have to fix, like the furnace, the flooding. I freaked out as soon, man, like my heart dropped when I saw that email hit my inbox and it said flooding, blah, blah, blah. And I like, oh my God, that scared the shit out of me. But
why
then
is
I
this
read the email,
email?
it's
I
like,
feel
oh,
like
and
flooding
it,
should be a phone call.
huh?
I feel like flooding should be a phone call, not an email.
Yeah, well, because they were just working on it. So I think
Oh,
they
so
just
they were
sent,
fixing it. Okay.
yeah, they sent a mass email to all the owners, and they were like, 500 year, I forget if it was 500, I think it was 500-year flood. And so that was the subject line. And yeah, it was sent out to all the owners, and it was just their current situation, like, hey, this, we're currently experiencing flooding, blah blah blah. We have sent teams out, and we're currently, and then we'll keep you up to date. So that was
Okay.
their quick email to just like notify us. And then the next day or two, then they emailed you with pictures and all that stuff. But yeah, I had the same thing like 1 or 2 days where I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh my properties. But then mine luckily wasn't too bad. And again, most of them are have basements, and they're not finished out basements. They have the laundry room there. So that's what I was like going through in my head. I was like, well, I would have to replace the washer and dryer for the tenants because that's their equipment, not mine. So then I was already calculating like what my expenses would be. um but it was just a little bit flooding, not too much. They were able to like pump it out, dry it out, and besides the furnace shorting out a little bit. So was the big emergency was actually not too bad. It was more of a headache than financial ruin. So yeah, most of these, yeah, as long as you do your homework up front, like most of the things are going to be fixable.
It's
But
that worry that gets you while you're waiting to solve the problem.
yeah,
Look back.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the worst part is the freaking out. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna share
oh,
exactly kind of what Dion just said. He says in real estate, a lot of people think we have problems when really what we have is things that take our attention, right? So
Hmm.
I think a lot of like yeah, a lot of these things may seem like problems, but there's usually a solution, or like Violet said earlier, your community, someone's probably has gone through something similar, and you kind of rely on those people if you have questions. So that's why community is so important. But Emily, sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, I just say I think this just shows us the way we're talking about this, and a lot of the comments I'm seeing over here in the chat is how important it is just for us to be in control of our mindset, because it's gonna happen. It already happened. It's gonna happen again. And you've everything that's come up, you figure it out because you have to, right? It's not like your basement flooded and then you're like, oh, it's the end of the world. And so I always remind myself, I used to dwell and panic a lot more as I was solving these problems. And I heard Charlie Munger talk. I think it was Charlie Munger. He was talking about business and as like a lattice, like garden lattice, it's got all those that weaves together. And like every day in your business, there's all these, and we always go, once I get over this, I'll be good. And then something else comes up. So your business has problems and family and this property and this property and this sewer line and this foundation and that, right? This is your business. And if you can't deal with that, do something different, because it might not be the quality of life that you want. But if you're going to be in it, you have to learn to accept all these things. Oh, I got a phone call about a fridge. Okay. Oh, I got a phone call about a flood. Okay. Oh, they're divorcing and breaking their lease. Okay. Like it's going to happen. And so if you let it like destroy you every time, you're going to be miserable for your whole life. And every time someone breaks a lease or trashes a house or does $15,000 worth of damage to one of my properties or whatever, like I've survived. I'm doing well. It's, and so you got to control your mindset before it hits you so you can deal with it a little better when it does.
Yasik has some recommendations for you to wake up less. He says some special gummies would help you.
I will not be controlled by any substances. I'm very against substances. I am in control of myself.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway is like, yeah, for sure, like mindset, because I definitely have panic sold because of things that during COVID, I just was done. I was like, and then it's funny because now looking back, I was like, man, like I really panicked for that. It was just a turnover, like, but it to me, it was just because like COVID, and so then we had the whole like tenant thing where they could stay, and then he went through a divorce, so then that added a layer of him struggling to a tenant that had been a pretty good tenant for 2 years. And then they left some damage. And then I was just like, so that made me have an emotional decision, and I got rid of that property, which now I would have just like, oh, okay, let me turn it over and keep on, moving forward. But yeah, so a lot of controlling your emotion. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. Like Emily knows she's anxious. I have anxiety too, that I've been learning to like control and stuff. And yeah, so it's a journey. I like it. It's fun, but like Emily said, if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Harrison, who was on Wednesday. So for those of you still here listening, just letting you know, on Wednesdays, Joe and Lauren and I will be sharing a new school member every week. So Harrison was on Wednesday, and next Wednesday, Hyder's going to be on. But we're kind of lined up for the next 4 or 5 weeks. But if you want to get on, let me know. But Harrison's asking, he says, Emily, have you ever done a video talking about being an anxious investor? I definitely know a lot of people, including friends and family members, that would appreciate it.
I don't know. I mean, it's probably an undertone in all of my videos.
I would like
You
to,
know-
you know what? I would like to be part of that if you do decide it. We just be like anxious and freak out and stuff. And
No, we talk
like,
about how not to. We're not going to lean into it. We're going to do better. You know, my
we're
husband, he
just
goes,
like,
have you
you
ever
know what?
tried just
We're just
not? Because he's not a lawyer. He's like, just don't. I'm like, oh, great. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah,
And,
yeah, people would just panic for sure. Like no, we just learn how to deal with it, you know.
I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of things like where people talk about this that I think are helpful. And someone told me once, if you naturally react a certain way, like if you get shot with an arrow, you got to look at emotions or feelings like an arrow. Like you might automatically, but you can learn to control your brain and say, okay, I felt that. Now I'm going to choose to respond differently to it and retrain your brain and how you respond. So you might always have the personality to go, whereas someone else might not. So if I know that about myself, then I go and then I choose to work on tactics to not give it power. And that's like what I'm trying to do in my life. But it takes time to adjust it, right? When you've thought that way for 30 something years.
Yeah.
shot with an arrow. Where did...
Like
No, I know.
Yeah, I get what you're talking about because that's exactly what it feels like when something triggers your anxiety. You just feel like, but through like me with therapy, I've learned to recognize that so much faster and then walk myself through like coming back down because yeah.
absolutely.
All right. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. I will be live streaming in school today at noon Pacific with Dana, the CEO of Hemlane. We're going to talk about how Hemlane is helping me self-manage my properties about 4,000 miles away. So if you're in school, tune in for that. Anything else you guys want to wrap things up with? I mean, any last final advice, maybe?
I'm responding to one comment over here, and I think it's a joke, but it says, I took a friend's wife and now she's pregnant. What should I do now? You ever heard the quote, everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is you're stupid and you make bad decisions. So sometimes there's consequences and then you got to do the right thing. So make the right decision, but if you did something stupid, then do the right thing.
Yeah.
Lynn says, take it to medieval times. Yeah, anything else? Emily, who's your next episode with? You just came out with you and Gus did one with Zuber on what my house podcast? Is that yours is my house podcast? Gus is what is it? I forget already.
Behind the doors, I think.
Behind the doors, yes. Who's your next interview for that?
So we have a couple recorded. We actually did a fun one with a couple that invest together, and they have some single family, multifamily, triple net commercial, mobile home parks. And it was kind of fun, just the dynamic of a couple that like they actually do it together and are both interested in it. So that one's being edited. We did one with who else did we talk to? Oh, we did one with Steve Rosenberg and an investor who lives in California and invests out of state. And Steve is actually willing to come on again and do that more than one time, a little more regularly. So if anybody has like a portfolio you're trying to optimize with, like, he's really big on systems and strategy. So you're not just building a job for yourself, like you're organizing your structure. He's willing to do several more of those with us. So if anybody wants to do one of those, reach out to me and we'll schedule it. And then we have a couple more scheduled that will be, those are just the ones that are filmed. So those will be our next couple weeks. And then we're still looking to do more so we can have them pre-recorded and edited and ready to go. So if you want to do the business, analysis with Steve, let us know. Or if you just want to come on, let us know. We'd be happy to have you. Mark,
Violeta, what's next for you on your podcast and your channel?
This week, we released like just me and Lynn, we did a seller financing where we talked about like, her seller financing deals and a little bit going through that. And then next week I'm just breaking down a little bit of the cash flow mistakes and stuff. But I am looking for guests as well. We want to start incorporating some guests and sharing stories and, just expertise as well. So if you're interested, definitely, hit me up, or Lynn at Linda's Investing. So either one works, and then we could get you scheduled because we would like to do more interviews.
I have a question for you. Are you guys, because you changed the name, so I would have thought with Heffa's maybe it was like lady focus since it's Cheese Made now. Are you open to male guests? Are you only doing females? Just so people know if they want to reach out.
Yeah, so it is more catered to through the lens of the Latina experience, but we are willing to bring like experts and other stories as well to share, because just with that in mind, that we have certain like values and things like that is going towards the Latina community. So but yeah, otherwise open to pretty much anybody that wants to come and share their expertise or their story, but again, with the mindset that is going to the target audience is Latina community.
Cool.
Very cool. If those of you haven't heard, Zuber has already announced that Emily is the day one speaker next year for year four Vegas. And Violetta, I didn't actually get like I said, you went to the event. This is your first time going to the ORAD event, right? What was your kind of takeaway from that?
Yeah, I really love the community because I've gone to a few real estate investors events, and they're always kind of like stuffy and very kind of like I feel like everyone's just trying to one up each other in some of those places. But with the aura, is everybody's just kind of like just trying to help each other and learn from each other and network, and everybody was so like open and just like uh with the speakers that he had lined up, is obviously very intentional of how he does his events and everything. So that's what ended up inspiring me to join. So I finally joined because Marc and Lynn has been trying to get me to join. So it's a great community. Yeah.
Violetta, did you see Flavio's comment? Boys would be welcome on your podcast.
Yeah, boys are welcome.
You should get
Flavio.
Flavio on, and that would Flavio is I would get him on. He's
I
a
think you should.
sleeper.
I would love to hear about what he's doing and what he's working on, because I feel like he's always supporting everybody, but I don't get to hear, what he's got going on. So I would love to hear that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Reach out to. It looks like Lynn is already going to be hunting them down. So
yeah.
Cool.
like
So
get them
maybe
on there.
Flavio and his wife, Lynn is asking. Ah, very cool. Yeah, we got to get Flavio out there. I'm trying to get him on the Wednesday one for the new school member, or not new
Yeah,
members, but school introductions. But
do it.
um, yeah,
Make a tour, Flavio. Go on both of them.
there you go, Flavio. You're being called out to jump on someone's channel. So we'll see which one you end up on first. But everyone, thanks for doing this, tuning in. Sorry about the quick power outage, but it's good to know that it kept streaming, even though
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I had to look at the live on Instagram. Like, are we still on? Like, I wasn't sure. So yeah, that's cool
Yeah,
that it still went through.
yeah, that's cool. So, like I said, I'll be in school today at noon Pacific with Dana from Hemlane, and tomorrow I'll be back. Geez, I got two tomorrow. I got Bitcoin Nick at 8 a.m. Pacific, and I'll be with Justin Canberra and Sabrina Maples, a new guest. She's also in Thatch's coaching program. She's in Arizona. She's a realtor broker, but she actually moved to the Pacific Northwest for a little while because that's where kind of Thatch's community was. But now she's in Arizona and she does wholesaling and house flipping and things like that. So that'll be tomorrow. But everyone, thanks for tuning in and have a great weekend.